Have you ever had two customers describe your company completely differently, like when it comes to the service and when it comes to the customer experience that you deliver? Have you ever had two customers describe it different? Even your team members, right? Where if you ask them, one would say, well, the experience was incredible. The experience is amazing. It's fantastic. It's like you hear all these great adjectives describing, but then you ask the next person, and for them, it felt like it was disorganized. It felt like it wasn't the same. And both of them are technically right, and that's also the problem, that's also the challenge, because usually that's the first signal of something deeper, something that most companies, in my experience, are not even aware of, which ends up killing their client retention and revenue. And oftentimes that's the problem, or that's the challenge that prevents them from scaling, from growing. And that's why growth oftentimes among growing businesses, scaling businesses, it begins to feel fragile. Like I say, oftentimes things begin to break as they start to work. And because when companies grow, something subtle happens, which happens all the time. Your brand identity, the thing that made you stand out, the very thing that made you unique, becomes harder to maintain, it becomes harder to keep, because that begins to drift. And that's what I call the operational drift. Because as you get bigger, you have more team members, you have more locations, so variations come in the service. And because of that, because of you having more people, more customers, and as a result, obviously more complexities, things just naturally begin to drift. And that's the problem. So you have this operational drift, which then causes customer behaviors to change. And then you begin to see it on the financial. So retention is just a lagging indicator. And oftentimes, this operational drift, which happens like you've experienced, happens suddenly. It's very gradual. It doesn't explode. It's something that you know it's happening. And for most growing companies, without anchoring the identity operationally, because they know what it is, but they have not been able to put it in an infrastructure. Because the more employees you have, everyone start creating their own version of what great service looks like, what great service feels like, and that's a problem. So, in this video, my goal is to show you why this identity drift is happening in the first place, and why this is oftentimes the silent leak that is happening inside your business. And if you're a premium brand who wants to treat the identity like it was when you started your business, when it was smaller, and you still want to keep that, and perhaps you want to operationalize it and turn it into an infrastructure and not just a marketing language, then this video is for you. Over the years, I have seen companies lose incredible clients, not because their service was bad. It's absolutely not. Like, customers don't want perfection; they want uh, preparation. That's what they care about, and predictability. But because of this identity shift and this blurring the identity of the company, as I always say, like, if you don't define it, they will decide it. Your employees will decide what a service should look like, and as a result, causing the change in behavior of your customers begin to decide that as well, voting with their wallet. So, if you're building a premium brand, you probably care deeply. You probably care deeply about how your customers feel about your brand, which is key, because without your customers, you wouldn't have a brand to begin with. And I know you also care about trust, which is critical. And you've spent all this time building trust. You care about your reputation in the marketplace. That is critical. That is absolutely critical if you are going to maintain the identity that you have and also maintain what has made you great. You have to care about the delivery of the experience and what your people are delivering. It's critical that your people understand what it takes, understand their roles, understand what is going to require for you to maintain and provide the same level of service and the experience when it was smaller. I bet when it was smaller, when your company was smaller, you could easily be able to tell what a customer wanted, a specific customer wanted, their preferences, what they didn't like. I mean, you knew everything about them because everything was in your head. And for that, it's critical that you understand that I know and understand your commitment to the customer experience. And that is something you want in your business and you want it to be non negotiable in your business. And that is something that we are going to get into. And I want to assure you that commitment and that instinct that you have is exactly right. And that's what you need to stand out in the marketplace because that's what has made you so special. That's why clients keep coming back, customers keep coming back. But loyalty doesn't come from good service alone. I think if we are going to create and make this identity as infrastructure, make it part of who you are, operationalizing it regardless of location or regardless of who is working, we have to understand that. When predictability is key, that's what it's all about. It comes from predictable identity. That's what it's about. An identity customers can rely on no matter what, even as you grow. But customers don't care about that. They want to ensure that no matter what, you take care of them. They care about predictability. And for customers, if you're unpredictable, that inconsistency is a risk to them. So as you grow, you want to maintain that predictability, that consistency. And here's where things start to break when growth happens, which I see all the time. It's really difficult to ignore if you are paying attention as a business leader. When a company is small, the identity of the business, of the brand, whatever that looks like, lives in the founder's head. It lives inside their head. But they know everything. It's easy to speak it, it's easy to solve problems. Like you know how to talk to customers, you know how to speak to customers, depending on the situation, whether they are happy, whether something went wrong. You can solve problems easily. Like it just comes so natural because you understand the value of the client experience. You know how to treat customers. But as the team grows, it just gets harder and I want to assure you that you are not crazy to think, wait, there's something broken here. Yes, there's something actually broken, but it's not because you messed something up. It's just something that happened naturally as your business grew. The issue is that that identity that you had automatically doesn't just transfer to the team if you don't operationalize it. And that's why I say if you don't define it clearly enough, if you don't define it, every employee will just begin to fill in the gaps that exist because they are only trying to do their best in the moment in certain situations. If you have not created the playbooks, if you have not created the systems and standards that they expect, that begins to become a problem. And now instead of one identity, you can then end up having like 5 or 10 or 20, whatever that looks like. But that only creates confusion for the customer. It creates this level of uncertainty. And for them, uncertainty is a risk. Customers want to feel that no matter what, you are going to take care of them. So it's very important to know, very extremely important to know this happens not because you delegated. I think it's important to state that clearly. This happened because oftentimes you delegated without systems. And there's a difference because alignment is better than agreement. You may not like everything that your team does. You may not like how a particular team member does something, but that's okay. Your job, your goal is to align them. And if you build a system, build the right systems and delegate it, it's going to be easier to provide the same level of service and the experience as you grow. And for your client, the irony is that your client might not be able to articulate what we are just walking through right now, understanding that this is an identity issue. But what they do know is that they feel it. They feel how your brand is shifting and they feel it immediately. And that is critical. That is important that you understand as we dive deep and understand what this is. So, clients don't just stay for quality. I think it's important to understand that, and it's important as we talk through this and go through this, we know that they stay for predictability. Remember, I said for customers, inconsistency is a risk. So if you're inconsistent, they begin to look elsewhere because the brain is always searching for safety and stability. You want to give them something that they can rely on, they can trust. They want to know what kind of experience they are walking into, what kind of experience they will get, how you treat them when things go wrong, how things are. Like it's all about that predictability. But if that experience, the experience you are delivering, changes depending on who they talk to, depending on the location, depending on who they come in contact with, you have a problem because now trust just starts to wobble. And that's the problem. It's about trust, which ultimately builds loyalty. And that's what customers care about. So they don't return or refer for that particular reason. Because if customers don't feel confident, don't feel certain that they'll be taken care of no matter what, then that is obviously going to impact your revenue. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And retention always breaks quietly first before you see it on the books. And that's why understanding the RDC, which is the retention drift cycle, is critical. Because if you clearly don't understand what is happening in your business as a leader and you have not operationalized what the identity should look like, you've not even been able to identify the operational drift that occurred in your business, then that's a problem. Because it's not really about your product or service, it's about how you make customers feel. So let's think about this for a second. If, like, I dropped you in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., in the hallway of a hotel, would you be able to tell me what hotel it is? Probably not. Probably not. And that wouldn't be wrong. That would actually be right because almost all hotels look the same. They do. Almost all of them look the same. But that's not the point. The point is, can you still differentiate yourself from the other competitor, from the other hotel brand, whatever that looks like in your world? So think about brands that have extremely clear identities, extremely clear identities. I'm sure you probably have one in your mind right now. And I want you to think about, is there a particular brand, business that you love to do business with and why? As you're thinking about that, if you walk into a Ritz Carlton, for example, using the hotel example, anywhere in the world, doesn't matter, any location of the Ritz Carlton, if you walked in, right, you expect a certain kind of interaction. It's a given. You just expect a certain kind of interaction, a certain kind of experience. You want to feel the premium about them, and you want to make sure that um, what you are getting is exactly that. But it's not because every employee at the Ritz Carlton, the Chick fil A's, or the Walt Disney companies are unique or they are magically better, right? These people don't go hiring unicorns. That's not it. They are better and great because the identity is operationalized. The identity is operationalized. So how they make you feel, the service and the experience, like the behavior, the actions, like everything is intentionally designed. And it's done so for a reason because If you don't define it, they will decide it. And so, as a business, you want everyone to understand what your brand means in action. That's the whole point. Whatever it is that is in your mind, can you operationalize it and make it easy for people to understand in their minds? That's the goal. That's the goal. And so, growing companies often skip this step. They skip it and they make assumptions. They think this is just going to happen naturally. They assume the identity will naturally scale as they grow. But that's false. Because going back to the fact that if you don't define it, they will decide it. How is it going to scale if you haven't clearly operationalized it? It doesn't, and it will not. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The structural fix that premium brand or premium companies use is that they treat identity as an infrastructure. They don't leave it to chance. They focus on ensuring that everything is clearly stated, everything is clearly defined. Nothing is left to chance. Nothing. They focus to make sure that everything that happens within their company is intentionally designed. They define things like what the excellence looks like. Like, what should a service look like? If something goes wrong, how do we address it? If something bad happens, how do we take care of the customer no matter what? They look at playbooks, they look at systems, they look at every aspect of the customer journey. But the most important piece is that they anticipate the needs of the customer. They look at how clients should feel after a touch point. And that's incredible to think about because if you intentionally look at the aspect of your customers and looking at what behaviors reinforce the brand, and you can then put them into action and operationalize it, that is critical. So you also have to look at what behaviors break the experience. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes world class brands different from the rest. Because once identity becomes operational, once identity becomes operational, it is game over. It is game over. That's how you become so confident in your brand that no matter what, no matter who, no matter the time, day, your customers will get the same consistent experience. And it's consistency that builds trust and ultimately loyalty. And so there's a saying that consistency is the new competitive advantage. But the only way you do that is by operationalizing your identity as a business. That's it. So if you are noticing identity drift inside your company, I want to assure you that that's not a failure. That's actually a signal. That's a signal. And it's a normal phase of growth. It's a normal phase of growth. It's just that signal to let you know and make you understand, okay, it's probably time to operationalize this. It's actually a normal phase of growth. So it's highly, highly critical that you focus on how to operationalize your business and how to take things to the next level. Because if you reach to that point where you're feeling the drift, probably means that culture and a brand identity need to be engineered. It's as simple as that. Culture to me is a verb. Culture is a verb. And if you want to build a brand that no matter what takes care of your customers, no matter the situation, you have to engineer it. You cannot assume it and say, well, because we've done this for so long, it's just going to scale with us as we grow. And it's not. It's simply not going to happen. And that's exactly where premium brands, premium companies start separating themselves from the competition because they understand and know this secret. That's it. Like any world class brand out there that you think about have an identity about them. And then, like using the Ritz Carlton example, using the hotel example, and even using the example of like a brand you love to do business with and like why you enjoy doing business with them, you begin to see there's a certain identity about them. And it's really about the product or service. The main reason is that these people are always obsessed and paranoid about their client experience. They are. And so they focus on that consistently. They focus on maintaining such a strong culture, such a strong system that no matter what, you'll be able to see and feel their identity. That's the difference. That is the difference. And so it's not just about talking about it, it's about ensuring that you understand the need to operationalize your identity. Because right now, everything lives in your head. And identity is the first retention leak that most scaling service businesses miss. They are not even aware of it. They are not aware of it. But if you can clearly see, articulate, define, and operationalize this, that's going to be a big change in your business. So, the main leaks, which we talked about in the last video, we talked about the entire leaks, and I promised I was going to take each video, each leak, and expand on it. This is it. So in the next video, we'll look at the second leak most growing companies run into as they scale. When this operational drift happens, we will look at each of them consistently. We'll look at each of them to ensure that you have what it takes, you have what you need to be able to grow your business. The next league is inconsistent standards, and that is critical if you are going to grow your business and if you want to maintain the same identity, you want to provide the same service, the same experience, you want clients to trust you, you want to be the go-to brand in your industry, then having a consistent experience, having a consistent standard is critical. And we'll look at why great service sometimes is actually one of the fastest ways to lose a client. And if you want a simple way to evaluate whether your company has identity drift, and you just want to go ahead and look at all the leaks within your company right now, I created a client retention checklist that walks you through the exact signals to look for. The exact signals to look for. The link will be in the description below. Go ahead and download it, and I'm sure it will be great for your company to know what the leaks are so you can plug them as soon as possible. It will help you see the gaps and close them. All right, I'll see you in the next video.